there are over 1 billion people in the world who are obese. Obesity is a particular condition that we have actually been studying for well over 50 years now. And you would think that after 50 years of studying it, we would be a lot farther along into solving the problem. But it seems like at every turn, everything only gets worse. Did you ever stop to think, are we even on the right road? Ignorance and obesity. Today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
You know, I really had no intention to tackle this subject today on the podcast, but I stumbled upon something this week I've seen far too many times. It really aggravates me every time I see it. We've got a city in California, Berkeley, California, has just announced this past week, unanimously passed through their city council, that they are going to ban certain foods, what they call quote unquote junk food. They're going to ban certain foods in the checkout aisles of stores. And the whole reason, of course, is to combat our problem of obesity. And many people applaud that, think that's just wonderful. It's great. That's fantastic. We're removing the quote unquote junk food. That's going to take another giant leap into attacking obesity. And I think I hit the roof when I heard it, because it's one more in a long line of absurd ways we are trying to attack this problem called obesity. I began this whole thing asking if you thought, well, maybe we're on the wrong road. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to wait till the end of the podcast to tell you that. I'm going to go ahead and let you know right now. We are clearly on the wrong road to solving this major epidemic. An epidemic that is killing us. An epidemic that is the number one killer in the world. Don't let anybody lie to you and tell you that heart disease is the number one killer. It's not. The number one killer is obesity. But the anger comes not in the amount of obese individuals or amount of obesity that we have in the world, and not in the amount of obesity that we have in America. The anger that comes from the ignorance the ignorant path, I should say, that we've chosen to go about trying to fix this problem. Because we've been on this path, like I say, for well over 50 years, and we're not any closer. And I promise you, and I'll hopefully show you today, that we're completely on the wrong path. Now, I'm going to get my crystal ball out. I'm going to get my crystal ball out. I'm going to tell you something. Now, this is 2020, and this ordinance has just passed in Berkeley. Now, I wave my magic wand, looking at my crystal ball, and I'm going to tell you that a year, 2 years, whatever amount of time you want to pick, that once we ban junk food in the checkout aisles, quote unquote junk food in the checkout aisles, it's going to make a dent in our obesity rates in Berkeley. Whatever year you want to pick, that it's supposed to happen in a year, it's supposed to happen 2 years, 5 years. I don't know. I'm not involved in making this absurd decision. So I don't know what the projections are, but I'm going to predict at that point in time that obesity rates will do exactly what they've done in the last 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years. And that is, obesity rates are going to continue to rise. Because, ladies and gentlemen, attacking the food is ignorant. Attacking the food is doing nothing to solve the obesity problem. Oh, I swear. As a comedian once used to say, okay, you want me to say that I'm telling you the truth, or I really believe in it? Okay, I swear. Well, I put my name on it, and you've probably heard me say this before, that there's no such thing as bad food, and it is actually causing more obesity. That idea, that thought process of good food and bad food is actually causing more obesity than it ever helped. And if anybody tells you there is such thing as good or bad food, they are lying to you. And I've gone so far as to say that person is a liar. And that's why I was saying I swear a minute ago, because I promise you, and I'll show you, that attacking the food is not making a difference. Now, if you're offended, you think I just called you a liar, or if you have any questions about this topic or any other, you can reach me at Garrett@personaledgefitness.com. That's my email address, and you can reach me through our website at personaledgefitness.com. You can also contact me through our Facebook page at Personal Edge Fitness. And feel free to call one of our locations, either in Mobile or Daphne, Alabama. And I'd love to speak with you about this topic or any other. Now, let's go down that road of why I say we have taken an ignorant path. We're on the wrong road to, quote-unquote, solving this problem of obesity. Now, here in the United States, if you're interested in the rate of obesity, well, 70.2% of Americans are obese. That means 2 out of every 3 people. 2 out of every 3 people are obese. That's staggering. Well, let me clear something up for you, too, that you may not know exactly what obese means. There's a scientific definition for obese. And you think you know it when you see it, but you'd be shocked at how many times you're seeing someone that's obese, or you may be experiencing obesity yourself and not even know it. There's a BMI calculation, but if you've heard me talk about this in the past, I'm not a big fan of BMI. And the reason I'm not a fan of body mass index, it's a pretty good rule of thumb. But a body mass index on somebody that's actually healthy, has a low amount of body fat, but quite a bit of muscle, can be skewed. And I've known people that have competed on the world stage, athletically, that are incredibly fit, and they are borderline obese according to BMI. BMI is more or less like the height-weight ratio, height-weight scales that we used to use all the time. If you're this tall, then you ought to be about this weight. And it's not an accurate measurement of health or fitness. And neither is weight. Weight is the gravitational pull of the earth on your body. But the actual measurement that's right every single time, and the correct definition of obesity, is 30% body fat or more, period. You can have a heavier weight than you are supposed to have for your height, as far as the height-weight scales, and you can still be healthy. You can have a BMI that registers that you're supposed to be obese and still actually be healthy. But you can't have a 30% body fat or more and not be considered obese, period. That's the definition I like to use because it's the accurate one. That's not opinion, that's fact. So the interesting thing about that, and the reason I bring up the correct way of classifying somebody that's obese, is because we think of people that are obese being very much overweight. I can look at somebody and tell them obese. They're fat. They have a lot of excess adipose tissue hanging off their body. They wear big clothes. They wear baggy clothes, and that person's obviously, that's what obese means. No, you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked at how many people, and there are scores of them, how many people that are thin. People run around telling them how healthy they are because they're thin. And they're way underweight. But yet, they're actually obese. If you know somebody that's thin but seems to be hot all the time, that's a warning sign. That person possibly has a lot of insulation on their body, though they may not have a huge amount. That person is possibly obese. That's how big this problem is. 2 out of 3 people, and a lot of people that you're looking around and seeing, you have no clue, but they're actually obese. And so it is a problem. It is an epidemic. It's one that was caused started back in 1950 when we started hating food. And I can actually pinpoint that for you. If you're interested in knowing that whole story, well, it's in a 4-part podcast that I have called The Lie of Food. It will tell you the entire history of how we started the obesity epidemic. And this is why I say we're on the wrong road. Now, I brought up Berkeley. I brought up the recent ban in Berkeley that's supposed to help us with our obesity problem. This is a trend. And I just researched a couple. There's tons of them out there, and I get so frustrated when I research them. But just to show you that there are others out there, and we've tried this before. In 2013, Mayor Mike Bloomberg in New York City banned soft drinks, or sugary drinks as he called them, in a container size over 16 ounces in the city of New York. And mainly because that was supposed to combat obesity. Well, I will say I do appreciate the attempt at controlling an amount, but again, we're going down the wrong road as far as solving obesity. I show you what I mean. We think that food is causing our problem, but obesity that I can think of is the only phenomenon, the only problem that we have. We tend to attack the substance itself and not the actual problem. I'll show you what I mean. To know me is to know that I'm involved in animal rescue. My wife happens to be the director of SaveAstray.org. We have fostered over hundreds of dogs every single year for the past 20 plus years, and we're very, very dedicated to it. I have 5 four-legged furry children myself, and some that I'm surprised that you may not hear in the background since I'm recording this from my home today. And something that really makes us upset and we don't like whatsoever is dog fighting. We're completely against it. It is a scourge, especially in the area of the country where we live. And of course, a lot of the agencies that we've been involved in or are currently involved in or currently related to, and friends of ours that happen to be in the field are doing everything to combat it. But in order to solve dog fighting, it's been mentioned that we should ban a certain breed, namely pit bulls. And they think that's going to have something to do with getting rid of dog fighting. Well, those of us in the know or in the field of animal rescue and whatever know for a fact that first thing, a pit bull happens to be a very affectionate animal. And were known as the 1930s as the babysitter breed. It's the reason that the Little Rascals Petey was actually a bully mix. And because in the 30s that every child had one, they were the babysitter breed. They loved children, and not in a vicious way by any means. But let's say that we did. Let's say we got rid of every single pit bull out there, including my adorable Nick, who's my wife's constant companion. Let's say we got rid of all of them. Do you really think that would get rid of dog fighting? Well, of course not. They're going to fight Rottweilers. You get rid of Rottweilers, they're going to fight Doberman Pinschers. You get rid of those, they're going to go all the way down to they're fighting Shih Tzus. The dog is not the problem. I'll give you a better example. Alcoholism. Now, in my many years of training, I have seen and worked with several people that have battled alcoholism, and it is a very difficult and challenging disease. Now we've got, as far as alcohol is concerned, there are regulations on it. You can't buy it until you're a certain age. In some areas, they don't sell it on certain days. The state stores aren't open at certain times. There are, and the bars you can't go into until you're a certain age. There's some regulations that go along as far as alcohol is concerned. But nobody talks about the reason that Henry, excuse me if your name's Henry, just using it as an example, Henry is an alcoholic because Henry drinks the bad bourbon. Or Henry got a hold of that bad vodka. And if we can just put the vodka in the corner, if we can just punish the vodka, if we can all ban the non-gluten-free bourbon, then Henry would be okay. Maybe we would make it so that Henry can't open up a freezer door in a convenience store and grab a beer. Maybe if we did that, then Henry would not be an alcoholic. No, that's absurd. That's absurd. We never look at that as the answer. We look at what's going on with that individual. We realize that somebody that's suffering from alcoholism is suffering from something else. And we try to get to the bottom of it. That's why I'm such a big fan of Alcoholics Anonymous, and where they get together as a group and use a support system to try to deal with the issues that bring about the desire, the craving, the need to escape, the need to treat themselves with alcohol. I'll go even farther. Drugs. Now that is something that is banned, outlawed. But if somebody were a drug addict, again, you wouldn't just think their problem was crack or cocaine. Yes, their access to cocaine, you don't want their dealer around them, what have you, don't want people that are pushing cocaine on them, what have you, but you're also going to look at what's going on in this person's life. Why is this person overdoing a substance? Why do they have that craving? Why do they have that pull? Why do they have that draw? Why do they have that addiction? When we look at that, we look at what's going on in the person's life. We don't look at banning or getting rid of the substance as the ultimate way of fixing the problem. I like my examples. I'm going to keep going because I may have lost you a little bit there. Garrett, you're talking about obesity. That's something completely different than alcoholism. Okay, let's talk about eating disorders. Let's talk about anorexia. Being a gymnastics coach for over 20 plus years and seeing a lot of this, not just in gymnasts, but is very prevalent amongst gymnasts, especially female gymnasts. I know the issues going on there. And it's easy to see, and most anybody would understand that even though some people believe that an anorexic can be cured, and I have an acquaintance who thought their daughter was anorexic, but now they're not anorexic anymore. Well, no, that's a disease of the mind, and the majority of people know that is something that needs to be dealt with by by a counselor. Not by somebody that's trying to push food on this individual. You want to find out why they are trying to exercise that kind of control on themselves. And believe me, it's the same thing. But the funny thing is, a minute ago I said that let's talk about eating disorders. Well, what you may not realize, and this is how bad the problem is, what you may not realize is the number one eating disorder in the world. Folks, it's obesity. Having an uncontrollable urge to overeat is a problem. That is the number one eating disorder in the world. And this problem is so skewed because of the way we've decided to go after it by attacking the food that we don't even realize that it's the number one eating disorder. That it's a problem. And it's a problem that's not inherent in the food. Back in 2008, the First Lady, now I'm not picking on anybody when I say this. I'm not really picking on the Berkeley City Council. People are wanting to try to do something to help. But back in the 50s, we started down this wrong road to get there, and everybody keeps looking on this road to try to find the answers. But back in 2008, the First Lady decided to start a school program, a school lunch program, a healthier eating initiative. And this is where they were going to have certain rules that dealt with what you could have on a school plate. And that was getting rid of pastas, getting rid of certain types of food, getting rid of higher amounts of sodium and what have you. And I understand what they were going after. And as of 2012, there was 90% compliance. 90% compliance. Did it solve any problems? Did it help our obesity problem? Well, obesity rates between 2009 and 2017 went from 10.8% to 14.8% in school-age children. No, it didn't help at all. With all due respect to our former First Lady and the attempts that she was trying to make, as well as others are trying to make, like Mayor Bloomberg, like the City Council of Berkeley, we're going down the wrong road. Taking away or banning food or picking on food and saying food is the problem is only exacerbating the problem. Now, if you're a fan of the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast, you've heard me talk about this particular issue before. And you'll probably hear me say it again and again and again and again until we all get on the right road. But the other reason why I speak about this so often is the fact that, of course, 70.2% of Americans are obese. Well, over 70% of the people that come to see us at Personal Edge come to see us about weight loss. And so that's the majority of what I see in my industry, in my business. It's the majority of what we see in the industry is dealing with obesity, dealing with being overweight. But what we try to do is we try to actually attack it from the problem that it actually is, the actual problem. Not just what we think is the problem, not going down that road of banning food, but actually what's causing the problem. Well, it's very simple. If you want to look at anything as far as the food's concerned, then look at what do we overeat, and then don't stop there. Look also at why. Why do we overeat certain foods. Now, there's got to be a child out there. I'm certain of it. I'm being ridiculous now. There's got to be one child out there that likes, a green leafy vegetable like spinach or broccoli or green beans, asparagus. There's got to be, I know at least one child. I happened to be that child when I was growing up. I loved broccoli. Absolutely loved broccoli. Couldn't stand it when one of our former presidents wanted it banned from the White House because he didn't like it. And I thought it was quite humorous, actually. But I actually loved broccoli. But you know what? My mother had no problem keeping me out of the broccoli drawer or the broccoli jar. And that sounds ridiculous, but it's not, if you think about it. We overeat things because we quote unquote like them. No. Why does somebody overdrink alcohol? Well, because that person has a problem. They have an addiction to alcohol. That's why they overdo it. Why does somebody overdo crack or cocaine or what have you? Well, because they have an addiction to that chemical and therefore they crave it and overdo it. Why does somebody eat way too many potato chips? Well, they just happen to like them a lot. Or, you've heard the old adage, you can't just eat one. There's a reason why we overeat certain foods and we don't overeat other foods, even though we like them. It's because those foods have particular chemicals in them. Stop. Don't go there. Don't go to, there you go, Garrett. See, processing and chemicals, and therefore there's bad food. No, that's not where I'm going with this. Stay with me a minute. Everything we overeat either has sugar, salt, alcohol, or caffeine in it. Period. So if you're sitting there listening to this and go, yes, I know, Garrett, people like that, Garrett, but I don't have that problem. It's just this one food that I overeat. I promise you, if I took that food away, you'd find something else to take its place. And it would have the same exact chemical that your brain, not your body, but that your brain is craving. And what we are doing when that happens is we're actually trying to solve a way that we feel. We're trying to feel better. It's the whole reason somebody drinks too much. It's the whole reason that somebody turns to drugs is because they want to feel better. They're feeling bound and down. The only thing that gets them up or makes them feel better is their chosen drug. That's how you create an alcoholic. That's how you created a drug addict. And taking away the alcohol, taking away the drug, that person just becomes more desperate to get those chemicals. That's all. You haven't fixed the problem. You fix the problem when you deal with why. Why? Why are you craving and overeating? And don't kid yourself with, you know what? The whole reason that Bob overdrinks is because he just likes bourbon a lot. Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ignorant. That's not the answer. The answer is asking yourself or asking that person or dealing with the problems that person, the stresses that they are experiencing, which makes them turn to that chemical to make themselves feel better. And banishing or punishing the chemical or calling the chemical ugly names like junk food. And pardon me for saying this, but you ought to eat that good stuff. Don't eat that crap that's over there. Criminalizing the food, calling it bad names or whatever is not going to fix a single problem. I tell you what it is going to do, and it's done for years and continues to do, is if you criminalize the food, you say the bad, ugly things about the food, and you happen to say it to the person eating it, say your child, guess what? You just criminalize your child. That is the most accepted form of child abuse that I've ever seen. Johnny, quit eating that junk. Quit eating that crap. You think that's healthy? Think that's really solving a problem? Understanding why children, adults go towards those chemicals, go towards those foods because they're trying to feel better. Understanding why they're doing that is the answer. And the answer really isn't simple. I can't say that. And the reason being, I'm not a parent, nor do I play one on TV. And I can't imagine. I mean, even though I coached kids for 20 years, I still train kids now. I can't fathom the struggles, especially now. I can't fathom the struggles that a parent has. By any means. But I'll tell you this. Criminalizing the food, calling the food bad names, not identifying the actual problem, I promise you, it's not helping fix childhood obesity. It's not helping fix obesity, period. What are the steps you can take to fix this? Well, the first one, I just got on my, had a nice little temper tantrum there and talked about it. First, don't criminalize the food. Don't shame the food. By shaming the food, you're actually shaming the person. But if you find that your child is seeking those things out, yes, it's not a bad idea to surround them with other quote-unquote options, but more importantly, find out what's going on. What's bugging them? You may be shocked. You may find out that, the kids have stress too. There could be a tough situation they're having at school. They could have a tough time adjusting with a peer group. There could be a bully involved. There could be a difficult time with a teacher. There could be a difficult time just in the family dynamic. And yes, you can train someone to be addicted to a chemical. There's plenty of cases of children being born to drug addicts that are addicted to the drugs themselves. But once that's been dealt with, once they're out alive and making some of the decisions on their own, now it's time to find out what's troubling them. What's going on? What's the challenge? It's the same thing that we do at Personal Edge Fitness. I've said this many times that nobody comes to us for a physical reason. Everyone comes to us for a mental reason. If you don't feel you're strong enough, that's a thought process you go through. And one day you decide, okay, I'm going to do something about it. I'll feel better about myself if I'm stronger. I'll feel better about myself if I don't have these pains. I'll feel better about myself if I fix this rotator cuff. I'll feel better about myself if I lose this weight. But it's all part of what we call seeking your level of wellness. And when things aren't right, you're going to combat them in many ways. Exercise is another way that some people use to combat that problem, and some people overdo it. Absolutely. There's what we call exercise bulimia. There's other instances that's similar to that. And so it's almost a form of self-mutilation. And so, yeah, those are the warning signs that we look for in helping people reach their true level of wellness. And we're actually very attuned to that over-exercising problem. But this is something that we look for when people come in and say, okay, I want to drop some pounds. I want to drop what? Well, we deal with that in our Catalyst Lifestyle Change program. That's what we actually go through. We find out why. It's far more important to find out why we do these things, why we overeat, why we seek solace in food. Because if we solve that problem, I promise you, whether the Nestle Crunch bar is put in the corner with a dunce hat on or not, if we find out why we're doing these things, we actually will solve the problem and lead that person to finding their level of wellness. Identify the true problem, stay away from the ignorance, and live your level of wellness. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.